Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'a sunnatahu ila yawmiddin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to another episode of your weekly Islamic chat show. Guest of the week coming to you from Sharjah TV. As always, I'm your host Ismail Bullock, and continuing in episodes related to the Hajj season. Today we're going to talk about Hajj from a general perspective, and also the importance of Hajj in the person's faith and person's spiritual, the spiritual aspects and benefits of Hajj, inshallah. And to do that with me is brother Almir. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum wa barakatuh. So, Hajj, mashallah. I mean, this is a amazing topic, an amazing deed that one can do. The fruits of Hajj one can see the most because it's such a comprehensive ritual. Yes, Ramadan is longer, but Ramadan is like daily, and you fast and you break your fast and you do things. But Hajj is like this, you could say 5 or 6 days of this time where it's quite intense and life-changing experience that one who can afford that goes to. It's one of the pillars of Islam, as we all know. It is the pillar of Islam that there's a condition to that pillar, as is with zakah. So basically, the condition is if you can afford. Same thing for zakah. If you make enough, if you have enough money to share, then you do zakah. And of course, Ramadan, if you're healthy enough, you are obliged to fast. So you could say that the 3 conditions, the first 3 pillars of Islam, most of the people can do or must do. That is the shahada, the prayer, and the sawm, the fasting. Then the next condition is zakah. Most of the people also, a lot of people can do that. The last one is Hajj, where you need more of wealth and more of things. This is the one that not many of people can afford, but it is obligatory only upon those who can afford. Now, Hajj in itself is one of the most important rituals one can do for his own growth or her own growth. Why do I say that? Because misconception among the people is you should wait until you get old to do Hajj. No, the scholars and the proper thing is if you can afford and you're young, you should do it. Because first of all, you don't know when you're going to pass away, and you had that ability and you had that obligation that you did not fulfill, yet you were able to. That's a big one. And secondly, being young, you can do the Hajj easier, and then you can grow from that. That's the whole idea behind it. And we have to also mention that there are 2 conditions about that this worship cannot bring a person closer to Allah, and cannot be accepted unless it has met the 2 conditions. First one is the sincerity towards Allah alone, meaning that it is not done to show off. It is done only to worship Allah and for His sake. Okay, and it's not for any reputation or any worldly gain. Or nowadays, even before, that's so that people may say, oh, he's a Haji, he went to Hajj. Or he is Haji Mahmoud, Haji Muhammad, Haji Almir, Haji Ismail. There's this title you get after coming to Hajj. Even when a person passes away, and the certificate says Haji such and such because he went to Hajj. Okay, so some people, it's not about to show off, but a lot of people, they tend to show off and they say, I went to Hajj, so I'm Haji. So people may call it like that. Second, the condition is to follow the Prophet ﷺ in the word and deed, meaning that doing everything according to what he did, meaning according to his sunnah.
And of course, what you've mentioned there, that is the actual condition for all good deeds to be accepted.
Exactly.
The doing it sincerely for Allah and doing it based upon the way the Prophet ﷺ did it. So you may find someone who's doing something sincerely for Allah, but then he does it in his own made-up way. He decides to pray 6 times a day, or he decides to, dance around making dhikr, for example, and he's doing it in his heart sincerely for Allah, but he's not doing what the Prophet ﷺ said. So therefore his deeds are not accepted. You may find someone who's doing the deeds, almost perfectly the way the Prophet ﷺ did it, but he's doing it, like you said, to show off or for somebody else. Again, the deed There has to be both of those,
Yes,
only
together,
for Allah
yes.
and the way the Prophet ﷺ did it.
Yes, exactly. Those two conditions have to be together. They have to be met. In Hajj, it's a physical task in itself. To do Hajj, one has to go to a physical ordeal, you could say, right? And when we talk about, let's just compare Hajj from before to nowadays, quickly. Before coming, let's say, from Europe, where I'm from Bosnia, going to Hajj, it was like a big endeavor, huge endeavor, meaning that, you're gone for 6 months, 4, 5, 6 months before, the time of the transport, which was the bus or train, or nowadays plane, subhanAllah. Even with the bus, it was like a 7-day one way. But imagine like 100 years ago, when there was no public transport, no bus, nothing. This was a long ordeal. Many people have passed away on the way to Hajj. Many people have passed away in Haramain itself, or on the way back. So this was an ordeal in itself. Plus, it took a huge financial undertaking. It was very expensive. To give you a comparison, for example, just before the Second World War, from our region, from Balkans region, how do we compare the prices nowadays? To put in perspective, put in the context for people who say a Hajj is expensive. It cost about 30 healthy cows, the cost of 30 healthy cows to go to Hajj at the time of 70 years ago, right? Or 80 years ago, subhanAllah, 30 cows. Now, a cow nowadays in Europe costs about 1,000 euros, healthy cow. So you're talking about 30,000 euros used to cost to go to Hajj. That's an astounding amount of money, really astounding amount of money. That in dirhams is like 120,000, right? It's a lot of money. And nowadays, that same Hajj costs 6 cows, 1/5. So 6,000 euros, right? And the amazing part is the people are still complaining, oh, it's too expensive. And then to put another perspective, you will go for Hajj for 2 weeks. You will fly most likely by plane. You will be in an air-conditioned bus on the way there. You'll be in an air-conditioned tent.
Tents nowadays,
Yes.
air-conditioned trains.
You will
taking
have
you
food, buffet food, catered, everything. You'll have healthcare provided for you by the Saudi authorities, because every Haji, every Mu'tamir who gets sick, he'll be treated for free. MashaAllah. I used to work in the area in a hospital, so we treated the Hujjaj. Subhanallah. This is an amazing thing. So all of these things combined, and they will still complain. So always I tell the Muslims, look at the perspective. Put it in this perspective. Compared to the previous times. People get down because, Muslims are suffering a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on. Yes, Muslims are suffering a lot, but just go back in the history. Look in the Mughal Empire, what they've done. How many millions Muslims have died in Iraq, and books, and the Euphrates River was filled with blood and ink. Yes, yeah, crazy stuff, incomprehensible stuff. And tell the people, this was at that time. So whatever is happening nowadays, yeah, it is bad, but you know what? So we have to educate ourselves about history and see how things turned out. So coming back nowadays, one has to do Hajj. And let's talk about the 3 different types of Hajj that are out there. There's the Hajj Tamattu', there is the Hajj Ifrad, and there's Hajj Qiran and the Hajj Ifrad. What is the difference between the 3? Hajj Tamattu' is basically Hajj and Umrah together, or I should say Umrah and Hajj together, where one goes.
I think, sorry to interrupt you there, I think before, just in case there's people there who, we have sometimes non-Muslim viewers, new Muslim viewers, Muslims with limited, of course we have to mention as well that the reward for someone who does this Hajj, like we mentioned,
Yes.
First of all, it's sincerely for Allah, and doing the actions that were taught by the Prophet ﷺ, is that they return from that like the day that their mother gave birth to them.
Yes.
Basically sinless. It's not an open permit now to say, hey, I'm sinless. you know, so, you know, that you're sinless for the rest of your life. No, of course you can be sinless and then unfortunately
Yes.
rack up sins again. But what it obviously means is that when you leave that Hajj, you are, as the hadith mentions, like, you know, free of sin like the day you were born. Because obviously we know as Muslims, we don't have that concept of being born with sin. So
And what is the ultimate reward for an accepted Hajj? It's Jannah.
Jannah.
So, properly done Hajj for sake of Allah, like we mentioned, those conditions meant, by the following the footsteps of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, accepted Hajj, guaranteed Jannah.
Because he said, you know, he even said, like, what is the reward for a Hajj except Jannah? Like, there's nothing else. You know, like, this is the reward for it. So, you know, so that's a very important thing before we go into the Hajj. You know, like what you can get if you do this Hajj, and that's why you find so many people, they do save up their whole life. You know, obviously not like the people who purposely delay it, but the ones who have no choice, and that's why you see some of them their life goal is to go to Hajj.
Yes, you know.
And like many of us save money for the latest car, they'll be saving money their whole life just to go to Hajj.
SubhanAllah, I have to say this because I think we're not going to have time to go into details of Hajj rituals, all of them, like the major ones. But some stories I'd like to mention to you. And you know, brings tears to my eyes, SubhanAllah. There was a couple from Kashmir area. We've you know, when I was in Hajj, this was a famous story at that time, SubhanAllah. Allah Akbar, you know, brings tears to my eyes. And the promise to each other was that when they get married, she asked for mahr, you know, the wife asked for mahr for the husband. And she said, what's the mahr going to be? And he said, she told him, she's like, I want you to take me to Hajj. And they were like in their teens, early 20s, SubhanAllah. And they did not have money. They were laborers, you could say, or working these kind of jobs. Every year they would save up a little bit, both of them. Every year. And guess how long it took them to save the money to go for Hajj? 50 years. So they came for Hajj when they're in their 70s. And this is around 2010 or 12, you know. And I'm complaining, and we're complaining about Hajj, where we can save up the money in whatever, you know, 5 years or a few years. If we don't buy this newest car and the newest gadget and this and that, you know. Imagine this couple. And SubhanAllah, he takes her for Hajj. And, you know, they do it together and they complete it. And then he says, finally, I have given my mahr to you. You know, these kind of stories, you know, like I said, we need to put things in perspective ourselves. Because, you know, makes one think like, SubhanAllah, look at the commitment a person has, or this beautiful couple, mashallah. I'm sure they had kids and everything. But every year they put $5, $10, $20, whatever it is, you know, just so they can save for 50 years, ya akhi.
Going to hold you on that point now because it's time to go for a break. Join us, inshallah, after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. And before the break, mashallah, you told us that really, you know, mashallah, amazing story of the couple. And I mean, subhanAllah, there's probably so many of those people out there that we don't even realize. And like you said, you know, so many of us, we may put savings aside for many years to get that dream car or I don't know, to go on that dream holiday. Of course, it's not always as easy as it used to be, because obviously sometimes, it's because mashallah of the amount of, you know, Muslims there are now, and you know, being able to manage it properly. Sometimes nowadays you have to, especially in many countries, depending where you live, you have to apply to go to Hajj, and some people don't get their permission, obviously, for years, you know, or they prioritize people who are, for example, 60 and above, or they have different categories. But, you know, the point we're trying to get at the end of the day is, you know, like you may have people that be saving 15, 20 years for that, I don't know, dream holiday in some exotic island that you have to do 5 different aeroplanes to get there, or something like that, depending on their income, of course. For them, you know, then where you have other people, their main goal is I need to do this Hajj, you know. And just that example you gave, and there's probably so many of us we just don't know about them, you know.
Yeah, I'm talking about like personal stories
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I've seen. And I was traveling one time, subhanAllah, this happened after Hajj, you know, we went to Malaysia to visit, me and my wife, and then we were in a taxi, and then the brother, you know, he says, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam, and my head was shaved because it was just after Hajj, maybe 2 weeks or something like that. He said, MashaAllah, where did you guys come from? We come from Saudi. Oh, MashaAllah. It's like, did you do Hajj? Because I see your head just kind of freshly shaved. I'm like, yeah, alhamdulillah, Allah blessed us to do Hajj. He said, MashaAllah, he says, I've been wanting to go for Hajj for a long time. I'm like, don't mind me asking, why can't you? Why didn't you go? He said, no, we have to put our names. There's a wait list for 20 years.
Whoa. Because also, yeah, because Malaysia,
Because
some of those,
there's a limit, yeah.
and there's a big some countries
Yes.
are very big
He's
population.
like, you know, and then subhanAllah, we drove down in the capital. He says, look, you see that building there? He said, that's Hajj Ministry. We have to submit our name. I submitted my name, he said, 15 years ago. I'm waiting, inshallah, next 5 years.
Wow.
And he's in his 50s. And I said to him, subhanAllah, did you go for Umrah or something? Oh, he said, numerous times. He's like, Umrah open, you can go. But it's a Hajj, you have to wait.
But what's amazing about that, as we know from Islam, is that, you know, your deeds are judged by your intention. So if these person he's applied for the Hajj, there's no way that he can go unless he gets that permission from that ministry, for example. And before that time he passes away, we know that inshallah he will get the reward as if he did Hajj.
How about this? For sure, Allahu Alam, this is, you know, there's opinion about this. Person who wants to go for Hajj, he cannot do for other obstacles, and he's able physically and financially that year. For every year that he doesn't go and he wants to, he's able to go that year as if he has gone for Hajj. You know, think about that, you know, this person, mashallah. And then another story I saw, I mean, this is with my own eyes, this brother who is in his 30s or 40s, right? From India, he's carrying his mother on his back. Literally, I'm not joking, brother. He's carrying his mother on his back. And we say to him, like, brother, do you need help or something? SubhanAllah. And she's very frail. She's in her 70s. You know, she has this, like a kyphoscoliosis type of thing where the back is crooked, cannot, you know. And he's carrying her. And we ask him, brother, why are you doing this? Can we like get the wheelchair for you? Can we help you or something? He said, no. I said, why? She carried me for 9 months in her womb. She took care of me when I was young. Why can't I carry her from Arafah to Muzdalifah to Mina to Jamrat? This is 20 kilometers in like super, you know, like very hot. And he's doing it.
It's interesting as well, because in the time of, in the time of, Prophet some time slightly after that, around that era, there was a man who was carrying his mother on the Hajj. And I think it was Umar, he asked Umar, he basically said, I've carried my mother on my back. Have I repaid her? And Umar said, you haven't even repaid her for one of the labor pains.
Yes, subhanAllah.
SubhanAllah. So that's, of course, we know Islamically as well that, this brother from his wanting to serve his mother and wanted to pay her back. But we obviously do know as well Islamically that there's no issue for him, of course,
if he were to
take a wheelchair,
yes,
especially
exactly.
If it will make him, or maybe his own pilgrimage will start to suffer because he's become so tired and that he can't even, he's so fatigued he can't even do his own ibadah.
We proceeded to observe him for a little bit, and mashallah, he was going. There was no tiredness in this guy, mashallah. Like, forget the guy who goes to CrossFit to do all these kind of gym, whatever. This person will get tired, not this brother, mashallah. He went on and he's going. And they're like, at the end of the day, we're looking at him like, mashallah, there's no need to follow him to see if he needs any help. Just let him be. He seems like he's got under control, mashallah. So, all these stories, and you see people, and this is the beauty of Hajj. From all the rituals we talk about, from following the footsteps of Ibrahim and Hajj and Ismail and after them, and Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his the way he showed us to do Hajj. What's amazing about Hajj is this human interaction, right? That you see Muslims, and this is one of the lessons from Hajj, that you see Muslims from all over the world. doing their utmost sacrifice to come and worship Allah. And this is like, you know how we say that travel makes one person more open-minded, a better person. And this is, subhanAllah, this Allah commanded us to do this a long time ago. Because you see Muslims from all different colors and shapes and religion, I mean, astaghfirullah, not religion, different languages, different cultures, come together at one place and worship Allah, and you see the interaction. And this is the amazing part of Hajj. And with, like you said, nowadays there's a lot of Muslims. That means there's a lot of people performing Hajj. So it was not the problem. Before, problem was getting to Hajj. During Hajj, you're already there, so you already did all your travels. So going from Arafah to Muzdalifah and Muzdalifah to Mina was not a big deal, because you already passed thousands and thousands of miles. So this was only a small part, you know. But nowadays, the issue for Hajj itself is the crowd, the amount of people, and the patience that requires for a person to persevere in Hajj. Because you see people sometimes, you know, impatient, doing things that are not appropriate, you know, and you have to be patient. And this is the ultimate test for a person who's doing Hajj. So that being said, you know, quickly go back to Hajj itself. How many types of Hajj there are? There's Hajj Tamattu', there's Hajj Ifrad, and Hajj Qiran. What is the difference? The difference is that in Hajj Tamattu' is the one you do Umrah, then you exit Ihram, and then you enter Ihram again, and then you continue with Hajj. This is the best of Hajj. This is the best one. And this is usually done for people who are visiting outside of the region, outside Mecca and stuff, and who are not limited by time, because it takes a little longer. And this is the Hajj the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did, and this is the best type of Hajj. The second one is Hajj al-Qiran, which also has Hajj and Umrah component, but it's together. And you can make niyyah for Umrah and Hajj at the same time. So the sa'i you do for Hajj, you can be qualified for Umrah, and sa'i you do for, tawaf you do for Hajj, also for Umrah can qualify for Hajj as well. And the difference is in the Quran that you offer a sacrifice, meaning that you offer a sheep, a cow, a part of a cow, or so on. Same thing in Tamattu you have to do. Hajj Ifrad is basically Hajj itself without Umrah, and you don't offer a sacrifice. And for people who used to live in Mecca or Mecca area, myself included, I used to do Hajj Ifrad, because you know you do the least one, and because we are living in the area, so Umrah you can do any time and so on. We just chose that way because of the overcrowding and so on. And these are the three types. So all three types have one thing in common. There are certain actions in Hajj that it's a must to be done. And there are four of them. Or Farida of Hajj, or the compulsory things, or compulsory things in Hajj. If one do any of those four, if one of the people misses any of those four, the Hajj will not be valid. So what are the four things? First is entering a state of Ihram. People think entering a state of Ihram means the physical. Put Ihram on, the two white robes, you know, and this is Ihram. No. The state of Ihram, yes, it's one of the parts is to put those clothes or robes, like you say. But state of Ihram meaning that you have to, there's certain things you cannot do, certain things you must do, and so on. And there's quite a bit of a list of things, you know. For example, hunting is not allowed, and perfume and scented soaps not allowed while you're in a state of Ihram. Those are some of the things that are not allowed. And there's so many other things. But anyway, this is number one, state of Ihram. And you cannot, for example, have relations with your wife during this time, and so on. Second part, that it's a must for Hajj to be accepted and valid, is standing on Arafat. Yawmul Arafah, you have to be there. Now, is it a part of the day? Do you have to be there like from Dhuhr to Maghrib, or Fajr to Maghrib? Do you have to be Asr to Maghrib? The ulama, they have said, and this is consensus of the opinion, of course better to stay there as long as possible. But if one can stay only there a few minutes even before Maghrib, it's acceptable. So this is the standing on Arafah, where one makes dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know, if he is there for prayers, to offer prayers and so on, salah and so on. That's without it, there's no Hajj.
But, and then obviously we know there's a hadith where the Prophet said,
Hajj is Arafah.
Hajj Arafah, you know, like the Hajj is Arafah. So like it's the
And-
pinnacle of it.
Yes, and the Arafah, and this is like a little clarification for our viewers. Hajj is Arafah, and Arafah is done on the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah. This is the only time one can do that. A must. For the other 3 compulsory things, it can be done on different days. It doesn't have to be done on specific days. You can do it on different days. So there's a flexibility there. But Hajj Arafah, this is the most important. One of the Hajj that I did was, Allah blessed us that we did it because we were working, and we did it while we were working and stuff like that. We did it, basically went straight to Arafah, you know, to complete that, and then this is how the Hajj starts. For people who do Tamattu and others, they start on 8th day on Mina and so on. They're going to Mina and so on. Anyway, so we said Ihram, state of Ihram is number 1, compulsory thing that one has to complete. Number 2 is Arafah. Number 3 is to complete the Tawaf around Kaaba. This is a must. Tawaf al-Ifada. And number 4 is Sa'i that comes with it. Now, the beautiful thing about this Tawaf, it can be delayed. Usually it's done on the 10th day or first day of Eid, this Ifada, but it can be combined with the farewell Tawaf, Tawaf al-Wada, on the 12th or 13th day of Dhul Hijjah, 3rd or 4th day of Eid. So this can be combined then. So there is some flexibility there. So for those 4 things one has to do. See, there's a misconception about the people that sometimes it's very hard for people to, for example, like throw stones at Jamarat, which is one of the conditions for Hajj. You know, maybe they got sick, they broke their leg, they cannot go there. So they think that if they cannot do this, their Hajj will be invalid. No, we know that standing, going to Muzdalifah and being there, spending part of the night, going to Mina on each night of Eid or 8th day, or stoning on Jamarat, and all of those things, they are actually compulsory things, but if one were to miss them, there's no sin as long as they pay the fidya, which is slaughtering the sheep. And
Hold you on that point because it's time to go for a break. Join us after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Before the break, you know, you touched upon those aspects that are compulsory, but if one was to miss them, they would obviously just have to pay the fidya.
yes, so they pay the fidya if they miss any of the things like staying in Muzdalifah, missing the stoning, which is done on 3 days for 3 days, or not staying in Mina at night, or those are the things. And if you miss those, you offer the sacrifice, then your Hajj is complete. And there are other things that are sunnah that are good to do, but if you miss them totally, it's no need, nothing to be repaid, nothing to be done for it. For example, like going to Mina on 8th day and spending, the sunnah is to be there for the 5 prayers. Basically Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and then next Fajr, which is the 9th day. Because you're supposed to pray Fajr in Mina on the 9th day and then proceed to Arafah and reach Arafah before Dhuhr prayer and staying in Arafah from Dhuhr until Maghrib. And then after Maghrib you are obliged, and this is the sunnah, to leave Arafah for Muzdalifah and so on. So these are the things that are sunnah that if one were to miss, it's okay. Hajj is still valid and so on. SubhanAllah, the beautiful thing about this religion, and a lot of people, they think that you have to offer Hajj, Arafah from Dhuhr until Maghrib. Yes, for people who are in Hajj, but there's a special ruling for those who are working, who are helping Hajj, and they want to do Hajj as well, and they have some time. For example, there's a lot of healthcare workers, a lot of security personnel. They want to do Hajj, but they cannot. So even for them, it's allowed to go to Arafah after Maghrib. There's a fatwa about that, and it's a beautiful thing. For people, there's special permission for them that they can be in Arafah after Maghrib for an hour or so, and then proceed to Muzdalifah and Jamarat and so on. Because you know what people have done, subhanAllah? They've done this, and they exit the ihram a day later, and they go back to work. Then they come back again, finish the rituals, and then they can do sa'i and all that later on. So these are some of the things for Hajj. And like we said before, people think part of the Hajj ritual is actually go to Medina. No, that's not the case. Everything in Hajj, if you think about it, a person has to be there on Arafah, 9th, then should be there for the 10th. And this is usually the first day of Eid, where after stoning the Jamarat, one actually shaves his head and then can enter or exit the state of Ihram. Meaning that you can, take the clothes off and you're out of Ihram. But still, there's some conditions upon that. You cannot still do certain things, but you just can change the clothes. And then 10th, 11th, and 12th day, first, second, and third day of Eid, you are throwing the stones, right? And you can do the fourth day as well, but it is not a must. The first three are must. If you choose to stay the fourth day, which is the 13th day of Dhul Hijjah, then this is good for you, it's better, but you can actually complete this on the 12th of the third day and you are finished. Meaning that you stay the parts of the night on Mina. That's what a lot of people do, spending the night. During the day, you don't have to stay in Mina, right? It's not a must, but during the night, you should, at least part of the night. And then proceed to finish the Jamarat, the stoning, every day around a certain time. And now there's a flexibility because there's so many people. So the ulama have said, there's not just you go after Dhuhr and do it. There's extension, you can do it in the evening as well. Because, it's such a crowded place, and you have to be careful. And one of the things that I always tell people, be it they go for Umrah or Hajj, sanctity of a Muslim life is more important than any other of the worship that one wants to do but may harm the Muslim. For example, you find a lot of people, they want to go kiss the black stone, And this is sunnah to do in Hajj. It's not a must. People think that you kissing the black stone, it's a part of the Hajj. No, it's not. It is sunnah. If you can do it, excellent. If you cannot do it and you're going to harm the Muslim brother, this is actually going against the teachings of Islam. And we see that a lot of people, they don't care for others. And even in Jamarat, people, they can get close to the Jamarat, so they start throwing stones, even though they're pebbles, very small. But they start throwing it from far away, and they cannot reach, and they hit you in the head. It's a common occurrence. They're not going to damage you or anything, these small pebbles, but still, imagine like 3 or 4 hitting you in the head at the same time. It can cause a little bit of discomfort and so on, maybe pain. It depends how hard they throw. If they just toss it, like a little lob, okay. But if they toss it like a fastball, like a liner, hitting you in the head, that's gonna hurt a little bit. So that's what a lot of people, tend to do. They don't look at others, and this is really important part, that sanctity of human life and your Muslim brother, and your sister, subhanAllah, very important. One of the tawafs, I remember doing the farewell tawaf, which I combined with Ifada, which is the compulsory tawaf. You can do that. This was on the 3rd day of Eid, 12th day of Dhul Hijjah. And, I was with my wife, and I said, and she was a few months pregnant at that time. And her being pregnant, I wanted to protect her, so she would go in front of me, and I put my hands this way, just so people would not come. And I said, let's get closer to Kaaba so we can complete that circle a little faster. And I got a little closer. Oh my God, subhanAllah, if you were never in a crowd that you cannot control whatever you're doing, there's no way. And it's like taking you left and right, and there's no way to control. I told my wife, I said, we're just gonna go out to lesser crowded, still crowded like this, but where you have a little bit of control. Actually, when you're walking straight, you're gonna go straight. But this way, like we're inside, you're walking straight, no, but you're going left, right, you're going left, then back. And then all of a sudden, 10 guys, young guys, very strong guys, mashallah, they decided that they finished the tawaf, the 7 rounds, and they decided to go the opposite direction. Oh yeah, it was like a bowling ball thrown. And it was like they're just ransacking through. And it's like people are, can you imagine like everybody going one way? And these 7 guys who thought this is the best idea in the world go in the opposite way. And they're nothing. Anybody can tell them because they're in the right. And this is the thing that I always tell people. When you go for Hajj, besides all the worship and rituals that you need to know about, know the etiquettes as well. What you should do and you should not do, what is acceptable, what is accepted in a way that you will not harm. So listen to the practical advice from people who have gone. Because the practical advice nowadays and practical advice 30 years ago is different. Or 40 years ago. There's a lot more people now at Hajj. So one has to be careful like that. And of course, even if you go away doing tawaf very far away, like, on the other side, and it's going to take you 3 hours, it's okay. But at least you know that you will not harm your Muslim brother or sister, and so on. And, I remember one time I was, like I said, in this tawaf year earlier, and I stepped on somebody's foot. I didn't want to, but it happened. And this person screamed in pain. And I felt so awful. And I said, I'm sorry, forgive me, samahni, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it. It's just the way it was, that the crowd was going just under it. And I said, you know what, forget it. I'm not going to ever go close. That you think you're getting closer to Allah because you're closer to Kaaba, you might go for the Hajj. I never tried to kiss a black stone in this time. That you might be able to do this, that you think you're getting closer. No, actually. Getting closer to Allah is going away so that the people will not be harmed by you, even though it's not in your control. So this was the thing that we see a lot. And of course, when he or she does the farewell tawaf, Hajj wada, which is wajib, then he or she must leave Mecca after that. So if they have any other tasks to do, like shopping and stuff like that, a lot of people prefer shopping. I don't know why people make it difficult for themselves during Hajj to do shopping. Mashallah, some of the Hajj groups, they have nice structure plan, which I recommend to all of them to do. If they want to do shopping, there's no harm in shopping. But you know what they do? For example, they say after Hajj we'll go shopping. We'll go to Jeddah and we'll complete our shopping there. So we're not, making it hard for people. Or go to another place, go to another area and so on. So for example, when you do the farewell tawaf, you should not do any tasks. If you're hungry, eat some food, that's acceptable by some of the opinions. But basically, you have niyyah to go. Now, what if you're on the bus and you're waiting to get out? And this is what happened to us. Now we're on the bus, we're leaving Mecca, but we get stuck on the bus for 5 hours. And we did our tawaf al-wada, the farewell tawaf. What does that mean? I'm still on the bus 6 hours later and I have to go to the bathroom or whatever, might have to eat food. This is considered task. No. The niyyah was there, you're on the bus, you're way out, it qualifies as you leaving, and that's okay. So some people have this misconception, if I'm staying extra 5-6 hours, maybe I should go back do another tawaf. So all of those things, there's a lot of practical advice. There's actually a book written by a brother who lived in Saudi, and he was a Hajj tour guide for 15 years straight. So there's a lot of nice practical advice for somebody who wants to do Hajj. Read that book. Of course, we need to know all the manasik of Hajj, all the requirements and rituals, but we need to know that all those practical things, it makes Hajj so much easier. What to carry with you, what not to carry with you, what do you need, and so on and so forth. And of course, I just forgot to mention that the talbiyah that we need to do, لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد لله لك الملك لا شريك لك. And then this is before you reach Hajj, the sacred area, or the limits of Mecca, outskirts of Mecca. And one has to also announce which type of Hajj he or she is doing. If it's لبيك اللهم الحج, and then you say Ifrad, Qiran, and Tamattu, and so on and so forth. I think there's so much to talk about Hajj, but we don't really have a lot of time because one, like I said, and I will try to finish with this, that Hajj is an amazing experience. It can be overwhelming, And like we mentioned before, the difficulty of Hajj, going to Hajj before was the transport, getting there. Imagine going from Morocco or Spain or even India. People would go with boats, people would walk with camels in the desert. You know, along the way, 6 months it would take. This was the difficult part of Hajj. And coming to Hajj, to do Hajj, it takes 5 days. This is the easy part. Nowadays, getting to Hajj, transportation is very easy. Once you get there, that the difficulty starts. In a sense that there's really lots of people, and you have to, you know, so many people get lost. For example, this is a big part of so many people, you know. I remember we lost. Of course, we found them later on, but some people were lost, you know. And subhanallah, I mean, it's so easy to get sidetracked. Like you said to somebody, you know, I'll see you in this place in a few minutes. All of a sudden, you're there, they're not there. They got stuck somewhere, and a lot of people make it difficult for themselves more than it needs to be. I've seen people, subhanallah, and I tell them, they want to do more than what is required. So we mentioned, for example, the tawaf, we give an example. Some people I've noticed, they do the ifadah. There's the beginning tawaf, which is done in Hajj Tamattu, which doesn't have to be done, and there's the ifadah and so on. Just to finish with this, they did 3 tawafs already, or they're going to do the last one before they leave. But guess what? They want to do tawaf every day of Hajj. Like meaning that they're going to do 5 or 6 tawafs. And they're making it difficult for themselves. They have to go from Mina and walk and do all this. Not only that, but in my opinion, wallahu alam, that you're doing this and you are overcrowding, you're adding to the crowd. For people that have to do the compulsory one, and you are there 5 times just because you want to get. In my opinion, wallahu alam, it's better for you not to do it. If you want to do tawaf, come outside of Hajj. Do as many tawafs as you want. After every prayer if you want. But to do this and you know, this is the priorities for people. They need to come in line, and they need to see that how can I make it easier for my Muslim brother or Muslim sister.
Jazakallah khair for sharing that with us. And we've got some very nice stories as well as some of the essential parts of Hajj. And inshallah, till next time, at the same time, same place, inshallah, I leave you as always with the greetings of Islam, the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.